I want to keep the preached word as brief as possible this morning because we'll welcome 3 new members to Union, which I'm very excited for. And the reason why I want to keep it brief is because, as Pastor Jay mentioned, at Union, we believe that each testimony of each and every person here is itself a sermon that reminds us of who we are and who we're called to be. These testimonies, your testimony, holds a sliver of the divine that this world will never be able to access until it is spoken. You see, we who believe in the power of testimony here at Union, we do so because to try to center a singular voice, to try to just center the voice of the pastor or the preacher each and every Sunday is to make marginal the voices of those the preacher may claim to serve and represent. You see, for times such as these, when it feels like we're living the page of some future student's history textbook, it's perhaps more necessary than ever to clarify the nature and the quality of the work that God has called us to do both this morning and every morning that follows. So I don't want to mince words today. We just don't have the time. I just want to roll up our sleeves together and get into the work because we are situated in a current socio-political reality that wants to claim that things like celebrating Black history, women's history, queer history, indigenous history, disability history, the list goes on, that all of these things are a threat to national security. This alone should be our sign that we who stand at the margins simply do not matter to those who encompass the center of power. You see, contrary to what the talking heads on Fox News may proclaim, something like Women's History Month is not the symptom of some woke disease. It's the consequence of ordering an entire society in ways that exclusively center the experience and comfort of wealthy, white, cisgendered, able-bodied men. It's why we can simultaneously hear decades of discourse about how women are simply too emotional to hold positions of power and influence, while also watching each and every day a male president and his crew of billionaire cronies whine about how anybody who tries to take their toys away is an enemy of the American people. It makes no sense. Why do we celebrate the identities of those who have been historically oppressed? Why does liberation work require that things like diversity, multiplicity, intersectionality remain at the core of our strategies? Because when white Western men alone cling to the center of power, where all of the decisions and structuring and funding and policy making lies, the success of all of those decisions and structures and funds and policies will be judged through the lens of white Western male experience. Power has a funny way of tricking us into believing that our singular experience of the world, our way of seeing, must be universal. It's how people who claim to be benevolent rescuers can order things like aid and assistance in ways that keep people in chains. Look, if I, as a preacher, if I tried to invoke a word that would speak to this community, and I do it standing in the center of power, if I stand in solidarity with the experience of those in power, I am already at a disadvantage. I can preach the faces off of all of you right in front of me, and maybe you'll go home and say that I'm the best preacher you've ever heard in your life. But from this position, I have absolutely no way to assess or address the needs of 75% of this room. I have no awareness of the totality of who sits behind me. You see, even if I try to somehow be crafty in preaching this way and then this way and then this way, no matter what I do, I will never have the full access, the full complete picture of what is happening in this sanctuary. Because to be at the center of power is to be inherently limited in one's vision. And as it is written in the book of Proverbs, chapter 29, where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no vision, the people perish. But when I stand at the margins, beloved, yes, I may be subject to the will of those who stand in the center, but I am the one who is best positioned to see the whole of this system, how it works, who it serves, where the impacts of corrupt power decisions are most deeply felt. From the position of the margins, I have the unique ability to envision the world as it should be, precisely because I can see the world as it actually is. You see, the point of a gospel of love and liberation, and this is important, beloved, is not trying to gain strategies for fighting amongst ourselves about which oppressed identity group deserves to have their experience pushed to the center of power first. Because hear me when I say that the kingdom of heaven on earth, it's not going to look like a world with more female than male billionaires, more black than white heads of for-profit prisons, more queer than not border czars. The point of a gospel of love and liberation is to reach a depth of compassion and empathy for one another that allows us to literally stand in solidarity with our neighbors at the margins. That when we seek to know and understand those whose struggle does not mirror our own, we gain a literal, perspectival shift on how we fundamentally view the world. It helps us, it heals us, dare I say, it saves us, because what I know to be true in my own body is that my gender knows what my whiteness will never tell me. This system is broken, and it isn't until I choose to stand in solidarity with the black struggle as well that my vision of the whole gets further clarified. To have compassion, beloved, it literally translates to suffer with, to take on another's struggle. It is not weakness, it is deeply biblical. That the power of God could have moved in any way, could have strung us up like little puppets for God's entertainment, but instead, God's power looks like taking on the struggle of human flesh, living amongst us in the dirt and the dust and the disappointment that comes with this human life. You see, if you want to live a godly life, you have to take on a struggle that is not yours. Our call this morning is not just transformation, it's transfiguration. Because to transfigure is to transform something. It's to transform into something more beautiful and elevated than was ever seen before. Power that wants to hoard all of its wealth and security at the center is not beautiful. Power that holds all of its wealth and security at the center is not beautiful. To lean into Transfiguration Sunday is to reconceive of a world where God's glory is not found at the top of the mountain where we want to pitch our tents, stay safe and comfortable. God's glory is found in the strength it takes to have access to all of heaven and still choose to climb back down to the earth where healing and help is still needed. Now, I said this sermon would be brief, so allow me to close this morning by reminding you this one thing. The power of God and the power of man are not the same power. Because the power of man It claws its way to the center of the universe and asserts an authority around which the whole world must now revolve. But the power of God runs out to the margins and reminds us all that the only sun around which we revolve is the one who proclaims, "Blessed are the poor, the hungry, the persecuted, the grieving, the meek, and the merciful, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So the kingdom of heaven is yours, beloved. It belongs to us. So I beg you this morning, instead of running toward the center as though our lives depended on it, it's time to reach out amongst the margins in a way that will save us all. May it be so. Amen.